there, welcome back to our show. Today I'm going to attempt to talk about Lost Highway, the David Lynch film. This is the Criterion 4K version import from America. You can only get the Blu-ray when you buy it in the UK. So I got the import where you get the 4K, so 2 discs. You get the booklet. And it's a wonderful film. Obviously I wanted as good as possible, really, to get a lot of extras. But I was really interested in the film, because this film actually has had a fairly terrible release. It was released originally, Studio Canal, originally video, cinema and video was fine. But then, when we went to the DVD era, it was actually hard to get hold of in Britain. And then we got to the Blu-ray era. You did get it in a box set with Lynch's other films, which was a nice box set, but it was not the greatest copy. You know, the picture quality was a bit duff, and it was always one of those films. Is like you really wish you had. So I relied on my old VHS copy for years, really. So you're just kind of hoping it would come a better transfer, and finally Criterion's done a good transfer that's generally available. So that's really good, because it's a film that deserves better. It's one of those films that is probably less well known from David Lynch, because it's been so hard to get hold of. Unless you got it early when released in VHS, it's hard to find, because it was not like Blue Velvet or Twin Peaks. It wasn't Elephant Man. It was not Mulholland Drive. These are films that came out and made a massive impact and are constantly good sellers. This was one of the other David Lynch films that came out, people appreciated it, and then it kind of fell away a little bit, which is a real shame, because it's one of my favourite David Lynch films. You know, it's it doesn't have the kind of iconic moments of like Blue Velvet, but it's much more quieter. Even though there's lots of wonderful weird stuff in it, it's more internalised, and there's less fireworks, really, of scene after scene of insanity and amazing stuff. This is much more Lynch operating this, going for like slow paranoia, very kind of Polanski-like, rather than, you know, these events happening. There's no like Frank Booth, there's no Dennis Hopper taking over the screen at every possible moment. No, there's none of that. It's just this quiet sense of unease. And the story itself is one of those stories that seems to intentionally not make total sense if you're looking for a plot breakdown. But if you're followed by dream logic and the magic realism, it makes perfect sense. It's kind of like Mulholland Drive in that way, is you don't have to interpret it, you know, one way. You can interpret it in various ways, and a lot of things that happen here go towards what happens in Mulholland Drive, what happens in Inland Empire and Twin Peaks: The Return. There's lots of things you can sense. This is the start of something new. Like Lynch had like 2 stages of his career. The early stage where he's full of he made Eraserhead, and he made these other films like Elephant Man, very well received. Then he made Dune, which is a disaster. But then he came back with Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, did World at Heart, did the Twin Peaks movie. Well, this seemed to be like the early part of his career where it was still an unknown quality to a degree. Like, people knew he did things that disturbed them, but it was an unknown quality. Then he took like 5 years off. I mean, after Twin Peaks movie, he got clobbered, because it was sort of like Dune again, where people were sick of him and he clobbered, and it was, even though he had made a great film and Twin Peaks 5 Walk With Me, it was not appreciated. It was kind of what happened with John Carpenter with The Thing, where he made a great film, a film that everybody now looks, or most people now look at and go, that was really well made. But at the time, it just disturbed them. I mean, there's something about a film, like, critics don't like horror movies to start with, but if a film actually disturbs them, they will go after it. You know, and so God help you if you disturb someone. The same thing happened with Peeping Tom and Michael Pilv decades before. Critics do not like to be disturbed. So once went away for 5 years, and then he came back, and he's not exactly been the same. It's been a more mature David Lynch in a sense, and it's taken longer between projects, and he seems to be much more careful, making sure everything's in the right place. He did Destiny, he did Straight Story, then Mulholland Drive, and then Inland Empire, and then Twin Peaks, and they've all been wonderful, and they've all had. It's like take no prisoners attitude. I'm doing what I'm going to do, and you either like it or you don't. But it's less it's been not very concerned with the public, like what they think about it. It's like these are the films, take them where you want them. I don't care. And this was the first one he kind of did that with, and it is just a wonderful film. It just really delivers beautifully. This is one of my favourites of his, but it is an imperfect film in the sense it's a building block to something else. But there's so many great moments in it, and the whole atmosphere of it is so terrific because at the end, it's because it operates in dream logic. You're quite happy to go back and watch it again pretty quickly because there's so much there that you can interpret, or you can leave it for years and then go back and it still feels the same way. It feels like a film noir done as a nightmare. You know, that's not a plot level, but there's a lot more going on in the sense of magic realism. There's more to it than that. So you start off with Bill Pullman as this musician, Fred, who's been paranoid about his wife and paranoid about life in general. He seems to exist to do his music. He doesn't really seem comfortable with life beyond that. Like the only moments he seems to be comfortable in life is when he's performing. That's when he's at his comfort. The rest of the time he seems to be filling in time, and he's paranoid his wife might not be doing what she says. He might be seeing someone behind his back, and it's done from his point of view. So you're never quite sure if it's paranoia or if it's real. And they're getting these tapes come through that show their house the first time round, then inside their house the second time round, then the third time round inside their house, and then he goes to a murder scene where he has murdered his wife. Now he does not remember it, and the funny thing about this film is Fred, who's viewed as a murderer throughout and who acts like a murderer throughout, you never see him kill anybody. You see him beat people up, but he never actually seems to kill people. And like on screen, it's all what people tell him he's done, but he can't remember. And there's basically the first like 45 minutes is a sequence that has been almost universally acclaimed, apart from Chris Mohan, who prefers the second half. But he's weird. He's weird. So yeah, this is the sequence everybody really adores. Generally, it's the reverse sequence. It's the thing everyone talks about this film is like you have Robert Blake as this creepy figure who can be in two places at once. He seems to be a figure of the supernatural. He operates by his own rules, and Lynch, like Kubrick, understands when you use supernatural, you use them just so, and also they should obey rules, but it should feel irrational and under your skin in a way, and it shouldn't be the obvious stuff. It should feel like you're never quite sure where they're going to go next, and that's what the Robert Blake character does to the Bill Pullman character. And slowly he's starting to come apart. The Bill Pullman character's starting to come apart, and it's when he's charged with murder and in death row, and he still can't remember it. But everyone thinks he's guilty. Everything from your point of view, even if it's from his point of view, it tells you he's guilty because just the way he's been acting, the way his general mood about life seems paranoid and selfish, and just something's off him. He does have that artist's entitlement element to him. Like his way he sees the world is the most important thing to him. He doesn't seem to understand other people, but he's paranoid about them and he's curious about them, but they're kind of an alien race to him, which is where the noir comes in. Just a sense of someone who's separating the world. I mean, that's why like, Robert Mitchum was always a great noir hero or villain or whatever the noir lead character was, because he was always slightly apart from humanity in his films. And Pullman has that same quality in this film. There's just someone who's slightly apart, not quite there with people. And there's like a rage building below him. It's just always there. It only gets out when he's playing his saxophone. So he's so just before he's meant to be executed, during a sequence where it's never explained, he disappears and a new character played by Balthazar Getty appears, who's called Pete. So this is a kid who was reported missing a few days before. He disappeared in front of his family. There's some sort of natural thing happened and he disappeared. No one sure what happened to him. Suddenly appears in this cell. And no one knows what happened. They can't execute him for the murder because he does have a past and he has a family, and they can't work out what happened, and he doesn't remember what happened. So there's something supernatural going on, but no one's quite sure what. So the police follow him, but they're forced to let him go because he didn't commit the murder. But they can't quite place what happened, and he can't place what happened. And then we go to a second section where he's slowly, he's got a girlfriend and a loving family, and there are some picket fences, a suggestion of this is a working class environment he comes from. He's a mechanic, but he likes his job. His life is good. He's got friends, and like Fred, he does have something he's passionate about, which is being a mechanic. He's great at being a mechanic. That's his thing. Just like with Fred, it was being a musician. But he kind of looks like Fred, the same hairstyle, but he's not Fred. And this is the area of the film that some people like, some people don't like, and it depends on the way you see it, I think. Like, I've seen it in video and I like it, but it seems to fall off from the first section. But when you're watching a projector or watching a big screen, it seems much more natural. Like, he's not Fred, and there's a variation. So it's kind of a weird character beat. In a sense, I think the problem is the casting of Balthazar Getty, I think, is part of the problem. He's a bit too dissimilar to Bill Pullman, even though he looks like him, that there's not the two actors playing two parts. There's not this connection that would solidify it in your head. Originally, Lynch wanted Edward Furlong to play the part, but he turned it down because he was going to do Pecker with John Waters. So he had a choice of John Waters and David Lynch. So that's quite a good choice to have. And I think originally it was maybe nudity in the film, and he didn't want to do that. So he turned it down and then said later on he regretted it because he should have done it. And I think in the film it would have worked better if he was in that part, because he's a moodier feel that's closer to what Bill Pullman was doing. And it probably would have linked it in your head a bit more. Because in the film he is moody and he is becoming violent, and there's a suggestion that he has been infected with something, which is basically Fred. But you're never quite sure, because he could have had this in him before, but it may never come out until this event happened. So you're never quite sure, so it's ambiguous. So Lynch doesn't explain things, so you have to interpret it your own way, which means the idea of him transforming and being a different version of Fred, in some ways works, in some ways it doesn't go the easy path of, oh, that's definitely what happened, because Lynch doesn't do that. So you get more ambiguity, so it makes it more interesting to watch, because it is another story with another character who's younger, but he is going down a path that's going to take him to danger the same way Fred did, but much earlier in his life. And he's got a girlfriend who he cheats on. He spots Patricia Arquette, who was a wife for Fred, and is now a mole for Mr. Eddie, played by Robert Loggia. And he has an affair with her, but can he trust her, can he not? He's not quite sure. And is she a reincarnated version of the first woman or not? Or was she a twin? Or the film offers explanations and then takes them away. and you're never quite sure what she is and who she is. As a ghostly figure, is this an afterlife thing where Fred's trying to reimagine his life in a better way and failing? The thing is, it never quite tells you, and it never quite offers you, like, yeah, that's the explanation. That's what will make it easier for you to understand. No, it's like, no, we're going to take away all that stuff so that you can actually have to figure out yourself and interpret yourself, and maybe you'll find other interpretations that are not quite as simplistic. Like, the two people, the same people. The film is trying to show, no, they're not, but there is a link. And that's what makes it creepy and weird, because you can't quite place what it is. It's kind of like those two little girls in The Shining. You can't quite place why they're creepy. And this one in the same way. You can't quite place why this situation is creepy, but it just is. There's something about it just is. Which is what Lynch is really good at. Then the final third doesn't even try to explain anything. Fred comes back and replaces Pete. And gets revenge on Mr. Eddie, along with the man in black, who is Robert Blake. But a lot of things happen, but it's never quite explained what's actually going on. And as early on in the film, Fred gets a message saying Dick Laurent is dead, and then at the end of it, he's giving that message himself, even though time has moved on. But it's almost like the message is going back in time to him to start the whole loop again. But what kind of loop is it? You're never quite sure. And at the end, Fred's floating down a highway, being chased by the police, unsure where he's going, and he just has a film noir look of doom on him. Which is perfect ending, because it's almost a dream of noir, but it places him like there's no definite end for him, which is perfect for the character. There's a character who's adjusting and never quite sure of himself, and doesn't quite seem to be very self-aware, and everything around him just feels intangible, and he's got that artist feeling of, he even said at one point he doesn't like cameras, he doesn't like to be, he likes to remember things his own way, not how they actually happened. And there's that sense of floating through the film. It's like, it's interpretive, and you've got to interpret it the same way as Fred's trying to interpret it, and the way everyone around him trying to interpret it, and he's trying to interpret his own wife. Did she die? Did she not? And he's trying to interpret reality, and so does other character, Pete, and it's just strange. And it doesn't join up in an easy way, which makes it perfect. That's why it's such a good film and such a interesting film. And it's such a jump off point to what Lynch was going to do next, where we were going to go with Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire, where it's like, these things do not have to match up. I mean, Lynch used this feeling again in the final episode of Twin Peaks: The Return, which threw a lot of people off initially, because they expected a traditional ending, and Lynch actually gave them something much stranger and so much more haunting, but also fascinating. So Lynch is really playing with what you expect from story and what you expect from character, and why do you interpret things, and why do you watch things, and what's your relationship to characters. He's pushing that, but not in an intellectual way, he's pushing it in an emotional way through stories that have a reality that's not quite what we expect. And it's meant to haunt you, it's meant to make you think and feel, but you're not meant, it's not to give you a precise answer, you have to interpret your own way. Which is why I find David Lynch stuff's great to watch, but you're watching at certain times you need it, rather than having to watch it all the time and try and figure every little thing out. Because I don't think you're really meant to figure everything out. You're meant to feel it and actually see it and let it float through you. So anyway, Lost Highway is David Lynch's great underrated film. I urge you to watch it. It is wonderful. It really is. And, you know, it's years old, but it's the one that always seems to be forgotten, which is a real shame, because it is a wonderful film and it does have some really good performances. Well, that's me for now. I'll be back soon with some more. Bye.